Hello everyone, my name is Carl Johnson with HIPAA Certify, and today I want to answer a question that we receive quite often, and that is my organization HIPAA compliant? So there are many factors in deciding whether or not your organization is HIPAA compliant. So what we have put together is a quick 2-minute quiz that lets you know from a high level whether or not your organization is HIPAA compliant and or if you need to bring in HIPAA Certify to help make sure that your organization is HIPAA compliant. So I'm going to take you through the 2-minute quiz so you can see for yourself how easy the questions are and also explain just the thinking behind the questions. Why are we asking these questions? So with that said, let's begin. We click on Take Free Quiz. And the very first question is, do you have a designated HIPAA Privacy Officer? Now, if you are a small organization, more than likely you don't have a dedicated privacy officer. You may have designated someone such as the office manager or the IT manager, but you don't have an actual HIPAA privacy officer, and that's their full-time title, and that's fine. So the questions are, yes, with documented responsibilities, yes, but role is informal, and that's what I see most of the time, is that the role is informal, or no designated officer. So I'm going to put what I normally see, which is yes, but role is informal, right? They have many hats, and privacy officer may be just one of those hats. I say yes. Next question is, when was the last security risk assessment? Now, security risk assessment, some organizations say, oh, well, the company that keeps our computers up and maintained, they did a security risk assessment. That is not the same as having a HIPAA compliant risk assessment, right? There are certain things that you would look for if you're working with a clinic or a organization that handles EPHI versus an organization that handles maybe credit cards like PCI. That being said, make sure when you're answering this question, you're thinking about HIPAA security risk assessment. Most of the time, the answer I see to this is never conducted one, right? They've had many security risk assessments, but not a thorough security risk assessment where the focus was on HIPAA. And that is a concern. So I'm going to put no. The next question is, do you have a business associate agreement with all vendors? Now, I would say most organizations don't, right? You might have a BAA with your major vendors, maybe ones that you use for your email, or if you're using some type of forms like JotMit form or things like that. But there are so many vendors involved when you're running an organization. Most of the time, I think that organizations just skip it, right? They assume that everything's okay. And that is also a concern. Now, I do see a lot of organizations still use Gmail for their email. Even after they've grown, they're still using Gmail for their email. And if you're using Gmail, like especially free or AOL or Outlook.com or anything like that, you want to make sure you have a BAA agreement with these vendors. And I can tell you most of the time, you probably don't, because one, it's a separate step from signing up for just a regular email account. And I can't say that enough. It's a separate step where you have to have an agreement between that vendor. Let's say that vendor is Google, Microsoft, etc. You and that vendor, which will give you that BAA. Okay, so I'm going to say some with some vendors because that's what I see most of the time. How often does your staff receive HIPAA training? This is another one that I see kind of depends. Now, most organizations do have some type of onboarding training that is related to HIPAA, and that's what I see most common. Now, I have seen lately a lot of HIPAA training companies saying, hey, we offer a 2 year or 3 year certificate, and that is considered a huge risk. You want your staff to have HIPAA on their mind all the time, right? Offering a 2 year or 3 year expired certificate is just increasing your risk. Now, one might argue by having it at 2 years or 3 years means less paperwork. Well, that's why, of course, you're using HIPAA certified. There's no paperwork. Everything's automated, of course. But yes, having a 2 or 3 year expiration of your HIPAA training is considered risky. And I recommend not going that route. If it was up to me, I would say every quarter you should do some type of scenario-based HIPAA training, whether that's on phishing, whether that's on incident response, which breach, whether that's role-based, specific to physicians or for front desk. But in answering this question, the one I see most common is only during onboarding. Question number 5. Do you have documented HIPAA policies and procedures? Most organizations that we interview, they do have some sort of policies and procedures, but they're old. And what happens is that when the organization was incorporated, they went to an attorney. The attorney wrote up some policies and procedures for them that was about 10, 15 years old and never used again. You want to make sure that your policies and procedures are updated. Remember, your policies is followed by your procedures, right? Your policies is the high level and your procedures is the how. How are we going to set a password change request, right? How are employees going to log into a system that has MFA, right? So again, most of the time I see yes, but outdated. Okay, that's probably what I see most often. Do you have a documented incident response plan? And this is where I don't normally see a incident response plan. Incident response plan includes backups, includes maybe a fire, or something simple as a hard drive has crashed, which happens quite a bit. Is your data, and specifically your patient data, going to be safe? Most organizations don't have an updated response plan, and I would say about 10% they have a plan but it's never been tested. That's the exact same thing as having a bunch of smoke detectors in your home, but you've never done a drill to make sure that everyone can get out of the house when the smoke detectors go off, or making sure that the smoke detectors work and the batteries work, right? So I would say the answer I see to this most of the time is no incident response plan. And finally, 7 of 7, is protected health information encrypted? And the answer that I receive most of the time is I'm not sure, I don't know. And I would receive in some organizations, especially large organizations, I get the answer that data at rest, right? But you want to make sure that not only is the data encrypted at rest, but also in transit. And not only that, because the word encryption gets thrown around a lot, especially nowadays that we live in the world of AI and cloud computing and SaaS products. Everyone uses the word encryption. It's more considered a benefit when it should be just something that is built in. And it should be the highest level of encryption, right? Especially now that we have quantum computing, which can break most of the legacy encryption out there. And you would be surprised to know that a lot of organizations still use legacy encryption. That being said, I'm going to say the answer that I see most of the time is only at rest. Okay, so I'm going to click clear. Now, let's look at the results. Okay, look at that. 24% high risk, right? Urgent. Your organization has significant HIPAA compliance gaps that need immediate attention. Without proper safeguards, you may be at risk for data breaches and penalties up to $1.5 million per incident, right? That is concern, right? So there is your results. You don't have to provide us any of your information. You can have it for yourself. But most definitely take this serious. I do think a lot of times organizations don't take it serious until there's a breach, and then that means it's already too late. And I think that sometimes the look or the logic is, well, instead of us spending money on compliance, we would rather take that risk and spend money if we get a breach. And that is most definitely the wrong way to look at it. Take the time and the investment up front with training, with policies and procedures, with making sure that you have incident plans in place, and making sure that you have offsite backups and restore, and that you're testing these things. Do it before something happens, not after, right? Because that's your reputation on the line. Your patient's information is on the line. OCR is now going to investigate. So do things that keeps you out of that trouble. Okay. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions whatsoever, please just click on Get Help and we will most definitely assist you. I'm going to put a link to our landing page below so you can use this for yourself. Again, you don't have to put your contact information in. Run this assessment as many times as you like, but most importantly, make sure that you are constantly aware of how to handle patient information and keep yourself safe and keep your patient safe. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to us. We help thousands of organizations and we most definitely can help you too. Thank you and have a great day.